So in this video, we will be making a rock, paper, scissors game. It will consist of these buttons in a group that make up our functionality. We can click them and we see the information displayed on the page with the emoji icon representing the outcome of our game. So when we lose, we get a frowny face. Draw is this neutral face, and when we eventually win, we get this smiley face. So let's get into it. Okay, welcome to this tutorial where we're gonna make a rock, paper, scissors game with vanilla.js. So let's just get into it. So here I've created a app.js file which will hold our JavaScript. Second, I will just create an index.html file. And I've just created a directory for this over here. So the files get created here. I'm just creating it through VS Code by clicking this new file icon. And lastly, I'll just make the app.css file like so. So now we have all the files that we need. I'll begin by creating the elements that we need for our page, our HTML elements. So this is just gonna be some boilerplate code to begin with. We need the doc type HTML at the top, then the HTML tags like so. I have autocomplete extensions. That's why I'm automatically getting the closing tag. It's really helpful sometimes. So let's continue. Just create a head tag, and here we'll make a title tag for the title on our tab. Let's just say rock, paper, scissors game, like so. And then a body tag, which will hold our content. And here we'll create some divs to position our elements and for later styling. So this will be our wrapper. Create a class for that so we can attach CSS to it later. And then we'll make a container which we'll call title container, which will hold our title for our page. And just the h1 tag that will say rock, paper, scissors. Just some random text really. Let's go like so. So this is the container for our title. So this is our title section of our page. So this div kind of represents the title area. Let's create another area. So here we need a section of the page that will display the result of our game. Let's create a class that says result container. And all these containers will be flex containers. So we'll dive into that a little deeper when we get to the CSS part. So inside here, we will create 3 divs. One for the computer. And then we'll just create a span for inline, just making an element inline that will hold our computer choice, because the computer chooses between rock, paper, and scissors, just like we will. But in that case, it will be random. Computer's choice. And then we'll just copy this and make one for user. And here we'll call this user choice. And this should really be IDs. I feel that it's easier to deal with IDs instead of classes. Doesn't really matter, but I just like it this way. And then we'll have the result. If it's win, draw, or lose. Just a span as well. And here we'll have an ID that says just result. Like so. So that's our result, our game displaying area, if you'd like. And then we need controls. So we'll make some buttons for each option, which are rock, paper, scissors. So we'll make a button for each of those. So I'll just make a class that has a name of button container. Notice that we have containers for every section of the page: title, result, button. This is just to, it's easier later when we want to position things and structure things. So here we'll make buttons. Not button, but buttons, but button. And this will have a class of rock, an ID of rock as well. And yeah, we'll just make out the rest. Button and a class of paper, ID paper. Yeah, and we need to actually say rock here for it to be kind of noticeable on the page. If we don't write anything inside the button text, it will just be a little blip on the screen. So we need to write something there. Then the last one will be scissors. 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 Yeah. And then inside this container, we can create a reset button. That would be helpful when we have finished our game and we want to start another game. We need to have an option for that as well. So reset button container. So this is a container within another container. Button class reset button ID reset, like so. That looks good. Let's take a look at how that looks in the file here. So if we go into our directory and we find our index file, we see that it has a internet browser icon. For me, it's Google Chrome. Could be something else for you. But if we double click that, you see here's our page. I will actually open this in Mozilla. Yeah, I'll just have to do it like this, like so. So yeah, here we see kind of the shell of our app. This doesn't do anything right now, but it will soon. Now let's continue by linking our script to our HTML, so we can actually do JavaScript through our HTML. So this means inserting a script tag, and the script tag needs to be down at the bottom of the body. I made this mistake many times before, but it needs to be down here for loading correctly. So by this, we should be able to do some JavaScript. Let's just say alert. This works, maybe. Like so. And we reload, and there we see this works maybe. So this means that our JavaScript is hooked up to our HTML document correctly. So now, what we need to do first is to connect our buttons to our JavaScript. So when pushing our buttons, something actually happens. And to do this, we will use these IDs to attach JavaScript to these elements by using their IDs. So we'll do that first, and then we'll do the game logic and make sure that the logic is sound and you actually win when you win and you lose when you lose and then draw when it's draw, and then a reset button to reset the game. So yeah, let's get into it. So first we'll create our rock button connection by just saying that rock option, we'll just make the variable equals document. So this is the way you create click events in vanilla JavaScript. Document get element by ID, like so. And in quotes, we'll put in rock because that's the ID of our element. So now it knows which element to attach itself to. And then a callback function with the body. And here we will do the manipulation of the text and determine who wins. So we can first just console logging that we actually rock was clicked, more like it clicked. So we can just see that the click event functions as we want. Just refresh here and click rock. Nothing happens. Let's take a look at why that is. Oh, yeah, because this isn't correct at all, actually. This is get elements by ID. We didn't finish it correctly, so it needs to be rock, I believe. Yeah, like so. And then add event listener. Listener, like so. And here we attach the click event. Callback function. Like so. Brackets, curly braces. And then we can say console.log rock was clicked. Like so. And I have prettier attached. So you can see my extensions here. Prettier is my code formatter that automatically formats my code on save. So that's why everything just changed in a blink of an eye. So saving to our browser again, just refresh, and if you click rock was clicked. So this works fine. Let's do the same thing for paper and scissor as well. I can just copy this actually. So here we'll have paper option. The ID is paper. It's still a click event and a callback function. And then we say paper was clicked. I'll just make one for scissors while I'm at it. Scissors, like so. Save, go to our browser, refresh. Rock was clicked, paper was clicked, scissors was clicked. So this works fine. So let's continue by just changing the HTML for when each of our options are clicked, so we actually see it on the page what we chose, not just the console. So for rock, we want to go into the document, the HTML document, get element by ID, and let's just check what we called it, user choice, and add it here. So here we will go into a function called inner HTML, or this property rather, and say rock. Let's take a look at the browser and see how that looks. You refresh, click rock. Then we see on our user element here, we attached rock to our HTML. So that's what we want. Let's do the same thing for our other two options. Here we're doing the same thing. We're attaching ourselves to the same HTML tag, changing the inner HTML to paper. Same here, only scissors. Let's save, see if that works. Refresh, rock, paper, and it changed. Scissors, it changed. Back to rock again. So that looks good. Now let's take a look at how we can make the user's choice. Not the user, I mean, but the computer's choice. So let's create a function. Get computer choice. This will I'll just make this an arrow function, like so. That just means you have the arrow here with the parameters or the arguments being we're able to insert our arguments here if we wanted to. So the old syntax would be get computer, would be like this. Does basically the exact same thing. So inside here, we want to generate a random number between 0 and 2. So we have three options, 0, 1, and 2. That would represent rock, paper, scissors as numeric numbers or numerals. Just to make it easier for ourselves, and then we can convert that into the string rock, paper, scissors. So let's begin by making a const. And just to note that making consts are constants that won't change. We won't change them any in the rest of our document. So if we wanted to change something, a variable, we would make it with an let instead of a const. So then I could actually change it without getting any errors. But we were not planning on changing this, so we can just make it a const. We'll say computer random number equals, and then we'll get into the math part of JavaScript here. We'll floor it. So as you can see here, returns a greater integer less than or equal to the numeric argument. So I believe it will round up. Not so super confident in that answer, but let's just move on. But not, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's floor and then another function within here, like this. And this is going to be random. So this returns a random number. It's a function that returns a random number. And if we multiply it with 3, for example, it would get us a random number between 0 and 2, because it starts at 0 and it ends on 3, you could say, but not including 3. So if you wanted a random number between 0 and 99, you would say it like this. But we want a random number between 0 and 2, so we will end it at 3. So with this, we get our random number. And then we will convert this value into some kind of choice that makes sense in the rock, paper, scissors frame of mind. So 0 doesn't make much sense. We need to convert that into rock, because we'll say that's the first element of our array. So let's make that array now. We'll just say const options. It's an array consisting of 3 strings, rock, paper, scissors, like so. And then we will convert by saying computer chosen option equals options, and then brackets computer random number. So now we're putting in this number. This is just a random number between these brackets. So we're actually saying in what position of this array are we going to extract the value. So let's say this number ends up being 0. What's at this index 0 of this array? That's rock. So the choice is rock. So let's just console log this for when we're using it, so we can just see in the console as well what gets chosen by the computer. And we need to actually return this value, computer chosen option. So the function actually returns something, so we can use the function elsewhere. So right now we're not using this function, so we need to actually use it. Let's continue by creating the function for our game logic that will use this getComputersChoice function. Let's create a const again and call this function gameLogic. This will actually take in an argument that is the user's choice. So we'll just put that in right away so we don't forget. So here we'll have a bunch of logic that determines who will win, lose, or have a draw depending on the rules of the game. But first, let's just say const computer equals get computer choice, like so. And let's just display that on the screen. Yeah, like so. Like so. So let's save. Let's check if this works by refreshing. And if I click here now, no, because we're not using the game logic function yet. So that makes sense. So let's see here. The game logic function will fire or get called on each of these button clicks. So when we click the rock button, for example, this game logic will be called. And as mentioned before, this game logic function takes in an argument, which would be the user choice. And in this instance, it's rock. We'll just put in the string rock here. So now let's take a look if something changed. Yeah, computer chosen option is scissors. Just try a few times. Yeah, there it changed. So it looks to be, yeah. So we have paper, scissors, and rock. So it looks to be fairly random. So that looks fine. So now we have the game logic function being called, console logging what the computer chose as the random number that's being generated through this function here. So now we can actually put that choice in our HTML just as we did with the user's choice. So let's do that now. We will go into the document, get element by ID. Let's take a look again at which ID we need to look at. Computer's choice. Paste that in there. And then we need to change the inner HTML. Inner HTML. And we will say computer, because this is the variable that holds the computer choice. So let's save. Take a look in the browser. We'll say rock. Computer also chose rock. Let's try again. There it changed. There we have scissors, paper, rock, paper, scissors, rock. So it looks fairly random. So that's what we want. Now we need to make the actual game logic. And this is kind of a mouthful. So let's just get into it. Okay, so now we want to create the logic for our game. Instead of putting it right here, let's actually move it a bit, because we need this computer variable and this function to run before the game logic, because we need that that value that function provides. So that needs to come first. So let's just put the game logic just beneath that line, and let's create our rock part of our logic in the case that we always choose rock as the user. Let's just say computer equals rock and user equals rock as well. So here we get the user value from the parameter or the argument in the function. So we'll just check on that, and computer is coming from this function call, which we have over here. So inside here, we're gonna set some kind of result variable, which we don't have right now. So let's make that one. Let's just make an array. result array, which just holds our options for the result, which is draw, win, lose, like so. And let's make a variable that holds the actual string. So let's make that an let, because this value will change through the course of our game. Because in some scenario you win, and in some other scenario you lose, or it's a draw. So here we'll say result equals result array, accessing the index, and because it's rock versus rock, that's a draw. So that's the first index, so 0. Let's just console log that out. Result draw, like so. So that's our first case. Let's see if we can make that happen in our game. So I choose rock. That was scissors, so no go. That was paper. That was rock, and then the result is draw. That's what we want. Let's make some more cases with some else if cases here. So the computer chooses scissors, but we as a user still choose rock, like so. And scissors versus our rock equals we win. So in our result array, that takes position 2, which is index 1. So let's say index 1 there. And let's just console log, because that's helpful to us when like this. And we can actually just copy paste this, but I'll just type it out just to really show every step here. Computer choice is paper, and the user's choice is still rock. In this scenario, we lose, which is index 2 because it's the last one here. And console log, like so. And then we test that in our browser. Let's see, rock versus rock is draw. Rock versus scissors is win. Rock versus scissors is win again. Rock versus paper is lose. Rock versus rock is draw. So this seems to work. So now we have the rock part figured out. One part we actually need to add here is this game logic part. It also needs to be present in the other options, so for paper as well as scissors, like so. So we ensure that the game logic function fires at not only when clicking the rock button, but also when we click the paper and the scissor button. Let's continue by making the paper part of our logic. just continuing. Computer chooses rock, and the user chooses paper, like so. Then the result is result array. Let's see. Paper versus rock. We have paper, we beat rock, so that's a win. What is win? It's 1. Then we'll just copy this because we win. Computer equals paper. Yeah, we can take scissors here. Scissors equals user equals paper again. And then paper versus scissors means we lose. Result array lose is number 2. Then we need this one. And lastly, for paper equals paper and this is a draw. Which is the first. I could do a better job doing this consistently with the same pattern for each option, but yeah, it doesn't matter that much. But if you'd like to do it consistently, that is great. So yeah, I lost my train of thought for a second there. Let's see. Result paper equals a draw. So we need this one. Like so. And now we have every option for paper. So let's check that out in the browser. Paper, scissor, loose. Paper, scissor, loose. Paper, draw. Paper, draw. Paper, rock, win. That makes sense. So now we have the paper down. So let's just do the final bit here and finish up with the scissors part. So the computer chooses rock and user chooses scissors. This equals scissors versus rock equals loose, which is second in the index number 2. Loose, which is here. And computer equals scissors inside quotations. User equals scissors. I need to make sure that I write this correctly or it will be wrong. And this equals a draw, which is the first one. So maybe we can just do it like this. Getting a little bit lazy here. And that should make sense. Draw is the first one, yes. And then finally the last of the last. Computer equals paper, and user equals scissors. That's a win. Which is number 1. And we console out like so. Let's make sure that works. Scissors versus rock loose, paper win, rock loose, paper win, rock loose, paper win, rock loose. It's going really far without a draw here. Win, draw finally. So this should be, yeah, should work fine. So this whole block could probably be written much more cleanly, but this is just to make it make sense to you. I'm trying just to make it as simple as I can here. And I think this is pretty hopefully understandable. Okay, so we have 2 things missing right now. Let's just see in our browser to take a look what is actually missing. Refresh, and if I just hit rock here, paper rock, we lose, but the result is not displayed. And if we wanted to reset, what do we do? And the reset button might be a little bit redundant because you can just click on another button just to start a new game, but why not? We can just make it. So let's first make the result display and then make the logic for our reset button, just to make these disappear again. So yeah, that's our assignment for now. First, we need to check our HTML here, and we have this results div, or rather the span here. This is what we're gonna hook into, which is an ID of result. Let's see here. So we need to take that result span and change its inner HTML. So let's just do this over here. We access the document, get element by ID, and we know it's called results. And we need to access the inner HTML, and we set it to result, which is a string that represents a result for the game, which is held here in this variable. So let's just test this out, see if it works. You refresh, rock, we lose. Rock, paper, that makes sense. Paper, scissors, lose. Scissors, draw. Paper, rock, we win. So this looks good. Now let's make the reset part of our game. Then we need to take a look at our HTML again. And we have this reset button, which has an ID of reset. So we need to make a click handler for this this button as well, just like we have made for all these other buttons, the rock, paper, and scissor button. We need to make basically the same logic for the reset button. So let's say reset equals document dot get element by ID, and I believe it was called reset. Yeah, the ID is reset. And then we will add our event listener. It's of type click, and we attach a callback function which says reset in the console log. But not just that, it actually changes some inner HTML. So we need to check out the document again, get element by ID, and which element are we accessing right now? We want to change the user option and the computer option and the result option. We want a clean slate. So we will take a look at our HTML again, the user and the computer. So let's just take the above one first, computer's choice. That one, and then change the inner HTML to an empty string. We can just copy this with Alt Shift and down. This copies the line and writes it, and it's written underneath. Very convenient if you're using VS Code. Let's just do that 2 times, and we need to change for user choice. These ID names could have been more consistent actually, but let's just leave it at that right now. So user choice, and then finally reset. No, I mean not reset, but actually results, of course. Like so. And let's check that out in the browser. Play a game, I play rock, he plays paper, and I lose. I want to reset. Boom. Reset. So this should work with everything. Yeah. Rock, scissors, win. Yeah. So this seems to work fine. So now our logic is actually finished. So for the purpose of making the rock, paper, scissors game, that's completed. So next we will work on how to style this and not make it look so default. So yeah, that is what we will cover next. Okay, now that we have our logic up and running, we can actually play our game. As we can see here in a minute. We can now see the result and user choice, computer choice. So everything looks fine here, and we can click reset, and that seems to work as well. But we want to style this because right now it looks kind of not so nice. So let's take a look at our code and make some changes. so that we can style this a little bit simpler. So we'll begin in our index.html file and expand on that a little with the new class names and new elements. So it will be easier to style, and we'll just style this using Flexbox because I think that's a nice way to get an overview on how you can position things around your site. So let's just get into it. First, we will attach a class to our title. This will just be called title because we want to do some styling on this as well. Then we will add a wrapper to this result container. Just called result wrapper, like so. And this will then, that's the container, and we want to wrap that. So this is now our wrapper, and here is our container, like so. Next, we need a result row because we want to display this as one row. And to be able to do that, it makes more sense to have one element representing the row. So like so, result row. And that will go here, I believe. No, actually, it will just wrap one element. That makes more sense. So we'll have it like this. So now we have one row for one defining aspect of our game. One being computer user results. So we need to have one result row for each thing here. Yeah. Is that correct? I think so. So we'll just make it. We're making it generic right now by having the same name, but we can style this individually with IDs because we have IDs here. So in the browser, this should have no consequence right now because we haven't attached any styles to it yet, but we will. And then we'll have some sort of image that makes it a little bit more interesting. I was thinking about having this icon and a like neutral face and a frown face for the different outcomes. So we'll add that later. But we will begin like this. So let's jump over to some CSS just to get started there. So we'll jump back and forth a little. First, we will attach some styling to the HTML document and the body itself, because there's a little strangeness. You could say to the document, if we style it like this, oh, that was really bright. Let's just say gray, like so. No, it didn't actually get styled. Let's see. Oh, we haven't attached the style sheet. That actually needs to be inserted, and we can do that here with the link tag, with the rel set to the style sheet and the href pointing to where the style sheet is, and it's in the same folder, so we can just do it like so, and this should hopefully style our document. So yeah, that looks good. So I thought we would get like this weird margin on top here, but we're not. So that's nice. So you don't have to deal with that right now. So we can just continue. Let's just add a different color here. We'll just say 60, 70, B, I believe. This is an interesting color, like a green gray kind of color. Goes nice with white fonts. So let's just say font family, just change the font here. Font family. I found something that works kind of okay. Say go, I'm not sure how you pronounce this. UI, Arial, sans serif, like so. Let's see how that looks. Looks a little better. So now let's make a class, or let's style a class rather, for the title container. It will have display flex. Let's just take a look at that for fun. So didn't have much, but we have the title container here containing the title. So let's just continue on there and say justify content to align it horizontally to the center, and change the font size to 36 pixels. Let's just add a margin to the top and bottom, and nothing to the sides. And the color, just say this is white, I guess. So looks kind of a bit more like a headline now. So that looks nice. Let's continue with our result wrapper. This will always also be display flex. So this is this guy wrapping all of this. So the information part of our game, you could say. The one displaying what our choices are and the outcome. So we'll say width of 100% to go across the screen. Also justify content, but it's in the center of the screen. Let's say flex wrap. For when the screen shrinks, we want this to wrap to the next row, so it will actually have it will go to the next level, you could say. If like this, actually, this is kind of the same behavior as flex wrap. We see when the screen shrinks, the text drops down. But now we're actually styling this, so it will make a little more sense when we add the emojis. But now we can see it's a little more centered. So now we have the wrapper. So this is the wrapper. And we want to make a container or style the container, which is just this part. Let's do that now. Result container. This will also be display flex. It will have a flex direction of column, because we're changing the direction. By default it's row, but now we're changing it to column. So everything inside of this guy, let's see, this guy is now a column and not a row. So didn't change much, but just so it is being noted that this is now a column. And we will align items, which now, because this is a column, set a column, align items works just like justify content. So just put center there, because it gets switched. So now justify content will align things vertically. And then set the width to 300 pixels. Font size, let's make it a little bigger, 32 pixels. Let's just put a margin to the right of 30 pixels, like so. Take a look at that, a little bigger now. So let's take a look at how this actually looks. So this will make a little more sense once we put in our emojis, like I said before. So we'll just power through here. Let's make our result row, which is the element inside of that container. Also display flex. Justify content. Now we'll do space between, because we want it on each side of its container. So one to the left and one to the right with space between. And then with inherit. So it will inherit its width from the parent. So now we get this totally vertical space here, not like it is pushed in like it was before. So now it's static as well. So that looks a little better. Take a look here. So now we have each result row with the same width. Yeah. Should be actually the space between should work also, but we're not actually seeing that. Let's take a look at that in a bit. Yeah, so I realized that I've made a mistake here by making an outer div for this. This is actually not what we want. We want to put this class inside here. So then we can just delete these divs, these outer divs. Gotta be careful here so you get all of them. And I pushed the wrong button. Copy and then paste. Like so. And this should hopefully fix a few things with the styling. Yeah, so now we actually get justify content space between here. So we see our result row has one element at each side and space between. So that is what we want. Let's continue by expanding on our button container by making a wrapper element here as well. This will have a class of button wrapper. So this element will wrap everything. Let's see how far that goes there, and add it there, like so. Now we have the container class for each element, rock, paper, scissors. We have a recent button container, reset button. This looks fine. So we're actually just adding the button wrapper here. Let's head over to our CSS again and style our button wrapper. This will have display flags, width of 100% because we want it to go across the screen, take up the entire width of the screen, and then justify content center. Let's take a look at that. So yeah, now our buttons are at center, but the buttons themselves have default styling, so we want to change that. Let's just have one style for the button container. It will have not class, but padding of 100 pixels, just to give some breathing room. Now let's style the actual button. We don't need a class identifier here. We can just style the button directly. So this will be a generic style for every button, unless we specify something else. So this is just a style that I found somewhere on the internet. So just go nuts here yourself if you want to. Just found there's plenty of styles out there for buttons, but I'll just use this one. So we'll taking away the border, and we're basically changing everything here, making it a little bigger with padding. And then aligning the text to the center of the button. Text decoration none. Maybe not totally necessary, but and then display inline block. Font size to 16 pixels. I might just speed up this process, but I'm just gonna type everything out. So I make the cursor a pointer, because that makes more sense when it's a button. Larger width, border radius. So the edges are a bit rounded. Oh, 3 pixels. So this should look a little nicer. Yeah. So this is just a generic shape of our button. We want to have different color for our buttons. And we want to actually see the text. And let's just add one more style for when we're hovering over our button. So now we're just making the background color a little different. Like so. So now you should be able to see something. Yeah. So this is the hover effect, but the default style we want to add using different styles. So we'll just do that now. So if we take a look, we have classes for each one, rock, paper, scissors. So let's attach some styling to that. Rock. And I have some specific styles here. Let's make this a little bigger, like so. So I'm just gonna type it out like so. So kind of a gray color, I presume. Then paper, another background color of 008 CBA, like a light blue color, and then scissors. Finally, and a 500. And can't forget this guy, like so. Let's take a look. This looks a lot better. We need to add one for the reset button as well. Reset button. And that will be yes, I kind of switched this up. This should be color here, actually. This should be F44336, like a red shade. So this looks a lot better. We can click them, we can reset. Looks good. And one more thing. No, actually this is fine. So let's attach our emoji face. So let's begin by adding our emoji section of the page, which will have a class of emoji container, and it will have an image tag, and we'll add we will attach an a source to that momentarily. Let's just make a class emoji image, like so, an ID of emoji, and we could just say emoji here for the alt, well, if the image were to not display. So our image is here. So this is just the image URL. So this will work as our default image. Let's just style that so it will actually show up on the screen. The emoji image. And let's just give it the height of 200 pixels and the margin left of 30 pixels. So it will go evenly with what is there right now. So we got it on screen at least, but it doesn't look too similar to what we want. We want actually the emoji to round up here, to appear right there, but it's not. So let's fix that. Then we will actually need to do a little change here. Let's take a look. So we are styling our emoji image so we can actually see it. But we need to wrap it in something here. So the thing is, this actually needs to be wrapped in our result wrapper because it's a part of our result section. So this should do some change. Yeah, so now we have it on the right side. This makes a lot more sense. And now we see this kind of works, but we kind of want this to change because now we lose, but it's still a happy face, and that doesn't make much sense. We want it to be a frowny face because we lost and we're not so happy about it. And for the draw situation, we want like this neutral face. So let's head over to our JavaScript again. So now we will create a new function which will change our emoji state. Let's say const set emoji status. So, and we will have a few different cases here. So let's say if result, which is the variable we have right here, and we will call this function when we click each button. So you'll see that the result is actually something, not just empty string. So not just result, but result equals when. So now we're checking if the string contains when. Just like we're checking, we're not checking, but we're setting the result here. So if that's the case, we want to set the correct image for our emoji. So then we will actually have to get our emojis. So now I've gotten the image URL for each of our emojis, so we can actually change them. We had the win one from before, but we needed the frowny one and the neutral one, so I got them right here. So let's just make this win one. Let's go into the document dot get element by ID, and our ID is emoji. Let's connect to our source property here, and then we'll actually change it. Then we need the one for when, like so. And then we'll have another case, else if result equals draw. And then basically just the same thing, document dot get element by ID, emoji, access the source property, and let's change it to the neutral face, like so. And we can just say else if here, maybe a little redundant because we can probably just say else, but just make it specific. Let's just make it specific, loose, and document get element by ID emoji source equals the frowny face, like so. And now we need to actually call this function, and we will call it on each of these OnClick handlers, or these variables rather. So after the game logic function runs, we'll set emoji status, and it doesn't take any arguments. Can't forget paper, and then scissors, like so. Let's take a look at that. Rock, we lose, and now we get the frowny face. Paper, we win. Smile face, scissors, lose again. We win, lose, and then we get a draw. So here's a neutral face. So it seems to work fine. Now we actually need to do one last thing, which is to reset this, because when we reset, it's still the neutral face. So we actually want the default face to be a smile face, because why not? So in our reset variable, we will just say emoji status here, document, get element by ID, emoji, just like before, source, and then just get our happy face here, like so. Let's check if that works. We lose, reset, and smiley face again. So our app seems to work fine now, and our styling is pretty okay. There's obviously a lot you can improve upon. For example, you can make animations or some kind of timer that shows, not just shoots the result in here like suddenly it appears. You can have some kind of delay that makes it a little more interesting, or some text popping up a little more festively. It's totally up to you, but I'm kind of satisfied with how this looks, and we get a smiley face, so the app seems to approve. So yeah, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll be sure to make more. See you in the next one.